And begin.
We can begin with the elections because we have, even though we do not have an in-person quorum as of yet, did receive proxy votes from the people who are unable to be here. So we have enough to tip us over. Don't anybody get tipped over. We don't. So we're holding this election as part of our biannual election for the chair and vice chair of the Transit Rider Council. And next week, which is also next month, we'll be holding the election for the PCAC chairs
Today. Yep.
Yes. So please be sure you can attend that meeting as well. And if you are unable to, please supply a proxy vote for that. Okay, so just do you want to read what you shared about the elections? I know you're on the spot there. So we're okay. So we have our current chair is Andrew and our vice chair is Bert Strauss, who is unable to join us today. And the proxies that went.
That's surgery.
It just had surgery. That doesn't. HIPAA violation.
HIPAA violation.
You
Yeah.
can't
And it
discuss
wasn't
that.
even hip surgery.
It doesn't matter.
No, you can't say that.
Yeah. So if a member would like to make a motion on how they would like to vote, if they would like to like Andrew and then Bert and how that would proceed, and then a motion and then a second.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion or a joint motion to renominate Andrew as chair and Bert as vice chair.
I second the motion. Wonderful. Is there any discussion? May we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The vote carries. Whew.
Proxies.
And the proxies are also reflect that.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do some great stuff this year.
Yes.
I feel it coming. There's a lot of things happening. And you're all an important part of that. You all represent parts of the city that are gonna have issues, so we're all gonna deal with it together like we have been. Now, we don't have the actual quorum, so we cannot approve the agenda or the minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then that will have to wait a little bit. I believe we're going to have our presentation begin around 12:15. If those folks are available, we could start early, but because I'm gonna have a long report when I give my report, so.
They're not
joining
here
remotely.
yet, and they're not quite here yet, so maybe.
Want me to start?
Sure, you have 5
Okay.
minutes.
All right.
Start and then your pause.
Okay, I have a lot of news and most of it is really good, fortunately. I'm sure, unless you've been living in a cave the last few days, have heard about Judge Lyman's temporary restraining order against the feds who would love to kill congestion pricing without a really valid reason for doing so. Fortunately, both Lisa and Brian were in the courtroom when this decision was rendered, and they will give you a little more info. So take it away,
Sure.
please.
Yes, we had the pleasure, opportunity to sit in the courtroom during the, it was supposed to be an hour and a half. It was probably more 3.5, 4 hours during the time that the plaintiffs, which in this case were the MTA, City DOT, New York State, and the defendants each gave their 45 minutes of testimony. And on the defendant's side, it was the US Department of Justice. The judge did ask if there was anybody from the Southern District there, and there was not. As you may recall, there was some alleged shenanigans / hanky-panky about, because there was in actuality a leaked memo or misfiled memo that basically said that the feds had no case. As it turns out, the feds had no case. So, which is essentially what the judge said in his ruling from the bench, which was a temporary restraining order. And yesterday, he came down with a preliminary injunction. So the difference is that on Tuesday, after hearing both sides of the argument, and he's a very active judge
And ironically, a Trump appointee.
and ironic, Trump appointee, but so by active, I mean, when somebody is giving their argument, he asks a lot of questions. It's a very give and take kind of discourse. I would say he kind of tips his hand a little, but you know, maybe not. There were a couple of times I thought he was going to go the other way. His ruling from the bench, which I don't think we expected. Well, the temporary restraining order request was a last minute request from the MTA and the other plaintiffs because action by the federal government was threatened starting on May 28th, which is the day after the court case. So it was the sword of Damocles, which would have occurred. So this would have prevented this sort of Damocles and which would have allowed him to take that action. And that would have prevented the feds from taking any action until June 9th. Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay, until June 9th. He said, and one of the reasons he said was because of the great likelihood of success from the plaintiffs. Now, we're used to having the MTA be defendants, right? So it was an interesting switcheroo here. The preliminary injunction we heard about yesterday, right after the board meeting. And we heard about it because a reporter asked at the Q&A, is it true that a preliminary injunction just came down and it was, she actually said she didn't want to ask it in public, but she did, and then the story was out. So there you go. That means that there will not be a time frame on when you know, it's not a 2-week time frame when the feds can't take an action. There's no time, there's no end limit.
Oh,
It means, yes.
I thought it was like 14 days approximately.
That was the TRO. This is a preliminary
Oh,
injunction.
excellent.
So this now means that it will be until the case is settled. So the case, the
Gotta mute that.
the judge wants this to be settled quickly. He thinks that there's a lot of reason and opportunity to settle this quickly, and that the feds have been futzing, my word, not his, and not doing their filings quickly enough. So he's asked them to sort of proceed with more haste in getting their filings together and their discovery and things like that. So it could be the end of the year. It could be forever. I think that this is a very significant ruling. I'm not a lawyer, don't play one on TV, maybe on Zoom occasionally. But I think that, you know, that looking at the way the MTA attorney took some of the most recent Supreme Court findings, this is most recent Supreme Court findings, and turned them around to say that this Supreme Court found that the administration, not that this administration, but the findings that in previous rulings, they can't just cancel contracts, that they can't just switch things up because.
When administrations change.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was, you know, I think that we'll hear a lot more about this type of activities. And it was a big victory for congestion pricing. It was a big victory for the MTA. It was a big victory for everybody who has fought and continues to fight for it. And it was a big victory for states' rights and sovereignty. The latest poll numbers.
Yeah.
The latest poll numbers show that even though we're coming out of the so-called valley of doom in public opinion on, and that people dislike it less, congestion pricing less, almost 50% of people, which is really high in a public opinion poll, do not want anybody messing with our state rights. So things are going well. And, you know, now next comes the big court cases where everything is decided rather than a temporary restraining order, preliminary injunction, and the, I guess, the administrative side of things. It's now all about the,
September.
it was originally slated to be in September based on the original filings, but I think that what we will see is that it will happen much sooner. But we don't know. It's like news breaks on a regular basis. Brian, did I miss anything there?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in the 109-page
Yeah.
function, kind of systematically knocking down all of the federal government's arguments,
Well taken.
including the secretary's arguments that the congestion pricing fee is somehow, particularly harmful to low-income New York City residents and
Yes.
goes
Majority
into
of whom use mass transit.
exactly, and that's one of what the responses the judge lays out. So it's really full of great stuff, worth digging into if you're ever in need of more.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we go back to this, after, because
Yeah,
Neil
we will,
has some.
because our speakers have
only a
arrived.
short period of time, but we've got pages and pages of notes,
Yes.
that
So
we can do.
Sunil and Alberto, welcome to Transit
you.
Riders Council, and we've heard a great deal in the past few months about the ACE cameras and the routes they've been assigned to, and hopefully that's going to continue to grow, and we're looking forward to what you have to tell us.
Wonderful. It's good to see you, Lisa and Andrew, once
See
again,
you.
and the rest of the members of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Council. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, thank you.
We're actually Transit Riders Council today.
Okay.
PCAC is next week.
I'm sorry. I'm
No
sorry.
No
problem.
worries.
Yeah. Um,
For the motion.
You should be able to share your screen.
Great. Alberto, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm happy to be here and definitely excited to talk about the good work that ACE has done so far for the system, and definitely happy to answer any questions after we show some highlights here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Great. So without further ado, let's start. My name is Sunil Nair. I work in the MTA Department of Buses. I have been with the MTA for about 18 years, primarily working on technologies onboard buses, bus time, passenger counters, digital screens, automated camera enforcement, bus security cameras come to mind. Also part of my portfolio is the zero emissions program that I look after. So, and I have a team of about 25 to 30 people who look after these critical programs for the MTA. And Andrew, every once in a while, when you send those messages that the screen is not working, it comes back to our group and we fix it and
Okay.
send it back to you. So
Excellent.
yeah. So I am here to talk about, actually Alberto and myself, we are here to talk about the automated camera enforcement program, where we are at this point in time, what our next steps might be, some of the benefits that we have seen from the program itself in terms of bus speeds, increasing bus speeds, improving our safety, not just for our operators, but also for customers, as well as people out on the streets, as well as some of the accessibility benefits that we get from having this program on our buses. I can start off with a little video, and I really hope this video plays, but it has played on all my test scenarios, so it should play here. Do you see it moving by any chance?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so that's good. So just as preamble, we have a fleet of 5,800 buses
A
running.
little bit. Can you hit play again?
Yeah, I haven't started playing the video, so
Okay.
I just wanted to set the stage. We have a fleet of 5,800 buses running about 350 routes across the city, and approximately 53,000 trips on a daily basis, carrying 2.7 million customers, paid and unpaid, of course. But the truth remains that we are the one of the slowest bus systems in the nation, and that's pretty hard to swallow. But we have average speeds of between 7 to 8 miles per hour, and in Manhattan it reaches only 5 miles per hour, a little over walking speed, and that's a shame. So, and really the issue is, well, that's really the problem. But the issues really are congested streets, primarily in terms of our lanes being congested or lanes being completely blocked off, our bus stops being blocked off, people double parked across bus routes, forcing the bus operators to make these on the spot decisions. That's not the greatest for our customers nor for bus speeds. So there are a lot of issues with respect to this. Of course, there are enforcement mechanisms, but enforcement mechanisms like bus lanes can only go so far, right? So here I have a little video that we've taken from our enforcement cameras that actually show you what life looks like for our operators and our customers. Here, your bus lane to the right is completely blocked off, forcing the operator to go on the side street. Here, the operator is trying to make a stop at a bus stop. There are customers at a bus stop, but they have to walk out onto the street and then try and board the bus. The bus cannot even do a level boarding right here. So that's another issue. So that's a perfect example of a bus stop being completely blocked off. Here is another example where the bus stop is totally blocked off by the truck there, and the bus is not able to pull over, so the bus has to pull over in front of all the other vehicles. This is an example where a single vehicle on a bus lane is causing all kinds of disruptions for the bus because the bus is unable to travel on that bus lane itself, which is clearly marked. Double parking, you see it. I don't have to explain it here. The bus operator actually has to cross in an unsafe manner to actually, make their travel. Here, the bus stop is blocked again. The list goes on and on. Here, the bus operator is making this unsafe move towards the left into oncoming traffic, trying to manage all the double parked cars across. Sorry, was there a question there?
No,
Sorry.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And the list goes on and on. This is a bus lane that's completely blocked, and the bus is stopped in the travel lane in the middle of traffic. This is again bus stops.
I was just gonna say that, yeah.
Yes. So,
Familiar, huh?
I mean,
was
these
just
are
saying that.
situations that our bus operators face on a daily basis. I've seen it. I mean, I've ridden some of these buses right in front. I take the express bus every morning, and I see some of this also. Enough said. And as I said before, right, there are enforcement mechanisms. For example, bus priority is actually the proven best way to speed up these buses. We have seen improvements of 10% additions in speeds across all bus lanes citywide. Busways, because they're enforced in a much more rigorous manner, we've seen 20% improvements. But the issue with bus lanes and busways is that it's just 7% of our total route miles across the city that have these things, which means your benefits from bus lanes and busways are limited to just those portions where we have these enforcement mechanisms. In fact, these are actual examples. Main Street Busway, the 181st Street Busway, and the Archer Avenue Busway. We've seen some amazing speed improvements, but busways and bus lanes only go so far. Unless the city steps up and makes more bus lanes and busways, we have to manage our buses using other technology mechanisms like bus lane enforcement or camera enforcement. Just as a little bit of history here, back in 2019, the state reauthorized the camera enforcement legislation to allow us to enforce not just on certain bus lanes, but bus lanes across the city. So that was a fairly momentous achievement, led by groups like you lobbying on our behalf, lobbying on behalf of the citizens. Advocating. That's right. You're right.
Yeah.
In 2023, the ambit of that legislation was expanded to allow for the enforcement to take place not just across bus lanes, but also at bus stops, as well as illegally double parked situations across our bus routes. I'm happy to note that at this point, camera enforcement is active across 39 routes in the city, all 5 boroughs. A little over 775,000 daily customers are benefiting from the program right now. and it's 510 miles of automated enforcement across a total of 2,400 miles of bus routes that we have in the city. So that's a fairly amazing achievement that we've had done till now. 1,200 buses have been equipped with the necessary technology to continue with the program, and we are not stopping here. We are actively expanding the retrofitting of these buses so that more buses, more routes across all 5 boroughs still start to benefit and continue to benefit from the program.
Neil,
Yes.
just an important question, which will help us understand this even better. How many feet in front of the bus can that camera, is in that camera's field of vision?
Right.
Good
Great question. So there are 2 cameras. One is what's called a contextual camera that's a wide angle camera that takes a video clip of the entire roadway in front of the bus, which is about, I want to say that camera has a useful visual distance of approximately 80 to 100 feet, because it's a wide angle camera and it takes a complete view of the roadway. And then we have a narrow angle camera that actually captures the license plates in front of the bus. And I believe that the visual field of that camera is between 7 and 12 feet. I can get you the exact numbers, but that's
helpful.
2 sets of, it's actually 2 sets of camera. This makes it much more foolproof because you have a city employee, you have multiple city employees who actually review the footage, and the wide angle camera allows for the city employee to be sure that the infraction actually took place under these conditions legislated, whereas the narrow angle camera allows for the city employee to make sure that the license plate is indeed legible so that it can be transferred onto the ticket itself,
Thank you.
Yep, of course. You can start me anytime
The
with
penalty,
questions.
the
Yeah.
penalty for the first, second, and third infractions are what?
So the first infraction is $50, followed by increments of $50 up to a upper limit of $250.
And at what point is the registration threat?
I don't believe that the registration
Can't be.
is revoked.
It can't be,
It can't
it's the
be.
car, not the driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Well, we are seeing benefits from the program right away across the system, across the 39 routes that we have put the system out to. We are seeing an average of 5% improvement on top of the improvements offered by bus lanes and busways. So that's critical. So you already have an improvement because there is an existing bus lane or a busway, and we are seeing an additional 5%, which is really useful, and that's an average. 20% reduction in collisions. So safety is improving not just for our operators in terms of driving their buses in a safer manner, but also for people out on the streets. So there's a 20% reduction in collisions right away. And what we are noticing is that peak recidivism, which is the number of times that a person commits an infraction more than once or twice, is at 9%, which means only 9% of the people actually get 2 or more violations. All the rest, after that first violation, they get the message and they stay out of our bus lanes, they stay out of our bus stops, or they stop double parking. So that's actually a good thing. The message is actually getting out there, and that's a good thing for the people of New York.
And then, Sunil, sorry, I'll also add with the tickets, unlike the city traffic tickets, there is no bundling of tickets for our like UPS or FedEx. They have to pay the total cost of those violations.
Thank you. Yes, very true. Yes.
Great.
The graph at the bottom actually shows you for the BX35, if you look at it on an aggregate basis, the busway gave you a improvement of approximately 20%, and the camera enforcement gave you another 20%, which makes your buses go that much faster on the BX35. Of course, this is just for those enforced sections on the BX35 that have a defined bus lane or a busway. Whereas the Bronx average is pretty low. I mean, the Bronx average is quite low, and you see the speed improvements that you see that you get out of introduction of this technology right off the bat. Well, it's not just bus lanes, right? Outside of the bus lanes also, once we started to implement the ticketing of people blocking our bus stops, once we started to implement the ticketing of people double parking across our bus route, we are starting to see speed impacts outside of the bus lane. For example, on the BX19, we are seeing a 12% speed improvement. Similarly, on the Q69, or a little over 20%. And again, on the M101, it's the same story. And it's not just speed improvements that you're seeing on the left on each of these routes. On the BX19, what we noticed is on the left-hand side, the lightly shaded section, you're seeing that the collisions dropped as a result of lane enforcement. And right around May, June of last year, we implemented bus stop enforcement as well as double parked enforcement. And on those unenforced sections, now that you had bus stop and double parked enforcement, you saw a further reduction of collision just because of the additional enforcement mechanisms by another 20%. So you're starting to see the benefits right across the bat on the route right there. Well, needless to say, and I'm sure you know this, but our customers, especially our wheelchair users and other customers with impairments, they are the most inconvenienced, especially at bus stops, because bus operators are either forced to go to a safer place so that the customers can board the bus in a safer manner, or bus operators are forced to park the bus in a non-level condition in order to get to these customers in some conditions. Of course, our bus operators try their best to make sure that every stop that they make is in the safest possible manner. But again, the bottom line is that our bus operators go through quite some acrobatics to make sure that they stop in a safer manner. And enforcing bus stops is so critical. And what we noticed is that after we started the enforcement of bus stops, the stops themselves are blocked 45% less often, which is great. Right away, with the limited set of routes that we have implemented camera enforcement on, it's blocked much less. And even the collisions at the bus stops is down by 12% on these routes. The pictures on the right show you examples, but of course you saw the video, you saw how difficult it was for our operators to make these moves. Somebody had a question there? Good.
No, we'll wait till the end. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, of course. And as I said before, the message is getting out there. Driver behavior is changing. This is a graph that shows you the recidivism rates on a monthly basis across the system over the last 4 years or so. And what you right away notice is that anytime you turn on a route, the recidivism rate goes up because it's a new route, people don't know, and you start to see about 10 to 12% recidivism rate. But right away it drops as soon as the first person gets that warning ticket. Let me just back up. As soon as you open up a route, every route is mandated by law to issue out what's called warning notices for the first 60 days, which means anybody blocking our bus stops or standing on a bus lane or double parked will only get a warning notice on that route for the first 60 days. So people are warned appropriately, right? So once the warning period passes, that's when they actually get the tickets. So the recidivism starts off high and then it drops to an average of about 2% on a monthly basis. So it's even lower than your highs when you open up these routes.
And here at Government Relations, in terms of getting the word out, we advise our local elected officials, our community boards, other stakeholders that these routes are going to start the 60-day warning period, in addition to the handout that you have in that room, but also resources with the website that was recently created for ACE. So we do our due diligence and make sure that these folks know this is coming and also where to get more information.
Yeah. So Alberto, I actually have a slide for you where I laid out all the various modes of outreach. We'll get there, but thank you for that. And what are we doing to expand the program? Well, over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, we plan to add another 60 routes, to add another 800 miles, 800 bus route miles of enforcement, which means we will get to about 1,400 miles of bus route enforcement by the end of this program. In fact, this month we opened up 5 routes on a warning phase. We have the BX5, M2, M4, the M100 out of Kingsbridge, and the M42 that we opened just this month. 1,800 buses are planned over the next 3 years. And this is an interesting statistic. By the end of the program, 50% of the fleet will be enabled with the technology, and 50% of the route mileage will be enforced using the technology. And needless to say, every route that goes live will go through that 60-day warning period. And this is what Alberto was actually mentioning. So Alberto, I don't know if you want to take this slide, but this is all the different outreach mechanisms that you have worked on. This is a picture of the AM New York ad that we run on a regular basis. Alberto, anything to
Yeah,
add?
sure. And the brochures, like noted there, they're in English, but also Title VI languages. And we've also worked with DOT on getting the word out to their stakeholders, including our for-hire vehicle providers who often bear the brunt of a ticket because they're in a bus lane or double parked just for the sheer nature of their job. So we're working on also educating those individuals as well. But again, we're always out here on the ground, briefing elected officials, briefing churches, and anyone else who wants to have the discussion.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of the presentation. This is a little graphic that actually shows you all the buses equipped with the system in real time, taken over March of this year. Yeah, that was in March of this year. This is a real-time visualization tool. Nothing much to see here. It's just that we just wanted to show you that the entire system is covered with using these 39 routes, and we don't plan to stop there. We plan to expand to much more routes, but I will stop this little animation. This is a website that we created internally. So it's a public-facing website where you can learn all about the program, all the routes that's active on the program, the routes that are in the warning period with the program, and things like that. Everything about the program is right there. But I will stop there. I'm sure you have questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sunil and Alberto. We do have some questions. Trudy?
Yes, because of my infirmity with my leg, I really need to be as close to the curb as possible. And it's getting better, but I still have to ask bus drivers to please curb the bus, even when there's plenty of room for them to get really close to the curb when they stop or when they come in. Well, I can't ask them when they're coming in, but I ask them when I'm getting off, and then I also have to ask them, and I say, and would you please try when you're pulling into a stop, even if I'm not there, because there are other people like me who really need to be as close to the curb as possible. Is there some kind of I don't know, I know that there is an order that goes out from time to time, but is there any way of just getting drivers to curb the bus and when they're briefed or whatever, to keep on doing it so that I don't have to ask every time I get on the bus, please curb. I know sometimes there are cars or trucks or whatever parked in the bus stop and
Let him answer, Trudy.
can't get in. But this is when there's plenty of room. So what can be done about that?
So we very much hear you. We are going to take this back. So let me just back up. There is already a clear maintenance directive and a operator directive that tells our operators to curb the bus in all situations in a safe manner wherever possible. But we hear you. We'll take this back and we'll reinforce that message back to our depots for sure, because
Well, you haven't heard me because this is not the first time that I've brought this up. I've been dealing.
Okay.
Judy, these are not those guys.
For over a year.
These are not the ones who are,
Understand.
Detroit's
We'll take that
report.
back.
thank you.
Please.
Chris?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank you because I'm glad to see those cameras are on the buses. But you know, one of your routes that you do have an issue, because I was there today and I've been there a couple of times, is Grand Central 42nd at Park Avenue. I did bring this, I did put this onto the app complaints and I did send this to government relations. But there are yellow taxis are in the bus stop. And there is no way that an M42 can come in. It has to sometimes not even stop because it's not safe. So that's one area. When you do have a chance, and I know Dante will agree with me on this because I've been on the 46 and the 44. And I'm glad you're showing those videos, but you have a bigger issue with the 44 going southbound. They're getting stuck, they get delayed, and you got issues coming from Flushing all the way to the junction. After the junction, they can fly, but they die all the way down. So can we do something about adjusting their cameras or fixing their, they do stop near the curve. I'll give them some leeway, but they do use the ramp for if a person cannot get up to that step. So that is a new procedure that Q did put that in, and it was mentioned 2 months ago. But I hope you guys can do some updates on that. Thank you. That was quick, Andrew.
Okay.
Well,
No.
the good piece
Oh,
about
definitely.
the Grand Central portion is the M42 recently has a 60-day warning period that just began on M42 for Ace. So hopefully that has some deliverables shortly. And in Sunil, I think we're working with DOT on that Main Street corridor for any updates there.
Yeah, I don't have any updates right now, but let me just get back with DOT on the 44 and see if they have anything there. But I know that there was some back and forth with DOT on that. But let me get back to you so that you can get back to them. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hi, very quick question. So you mentioned that there's another group that's reviewing the footage before the notices of liability are issued. Who is that group?
So
And
so our buses actually snap two buses passing by a
Right.
violator, within a fixed time interval, take the ticket, take the picture, package it as part of a violation, and then it's sent over to city DOT.
DOT.
And city DOT employees actually look at the violation, make sure that it's a real violation under the right circumstances with the right rules, and then they issue a ticket. And then the payment of the ticket is done via the usual manner, via, any speed ticket is paid to city DOF, and that just follows the same process.
Right, it's a notice of liability and I'm very familiar with it. So is there a lag in terms of their review period? You know, when you're looking at measuring your performance and how this is working on a particular route, have you found there's a lag in their processing of the notices of liability? Or are you looking at simply bus times to gauge your
Oh,
performance
so
enhancement?
yeah. Good question. No, we work really, in fact, we talk to city DOT at least on a weekly basis on this program, and there is no lag. There's no perceivable lag. When we turn on a route, maybe there is a tiny bit of a lag in terms of processing the additional tickets, but otherwise they turn around the tickets on short notice back to either warning notices or actual citations. But no, there is no lag. There's no.
No, it's usually about a month, but you may want to look into that.
It's
But,
yeah.
you know, I asked about the group that reconciles this because we've seen that in Jamaica, Queens, there's some streets that are not bus lanes at certain times of the day.
Okay.
And they've issued notices of liability, through the camera picture of other people, as if there was an active bus lane at that time of day. So, have you gotten any information back about the dismissal rate of?
So, okay, so specific with respect to Jamaica, if you have
Yeah.
any examples that you can send to us, we can definitely track it down and see if this was. So what you're really saying is there were some instances in Jamaica where this may have been sent in error, right? That's really what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
So if you have those examples, please send it our way. We will take it up with DOT. And we do get the one-offs where we check with DOT and DOT says, well, this was a error on the part of this, that, and the other. But we can definitely take that back and clarify that for you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great. Dante?
Thank you. Utica Avenue. I'm curious if you all have had any conversations with the dollar vans. As much as they are a useful, I guess, mode of transportation for some folks, they clog up Utica Avenue at every section, doing K-turns. Like, it's actually ridiculous. So has there been any conversation with the dollar vans? If not, do you plan to have a conversation with the dollar vans? I want to just make sure that they understand the rules. Not trying to, you know, put them in any type of trouble, but the reality is that the buses can't get down Utica Avenue, right?
Correct.
So for people who are paying, you know, for this service, they're getting stuck behind a dollar van. So just curious about that. Thank you.
Alberto, can I bother you for that?
Yeah, so we're definitely looking to speaking to those specific folks and drivers over the next couple of weeks to make sure that they're informed, as well as DOT speaking to the for hire vehicles on their end. So definitely we'll follow up with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And are new buses that are being purchased, are there cameras being installed in there? Can you put signs in buses that show people that there's camera enforcement in place? I've seen people freak out because there's traffic in the bus lane, and I think that will go a long way. And where does the money go when it's collected from the fines?
Yeah, so great questions. And we are working on that, Lisa. We are working with the new bus procurement group to add specifications of the hardware so that every new bus coming 2026, late 2026 onwards, would have the system already equipped so that you don't have to go through this laborious process of retrofitting and things like that. With respect to signage on the buses, we do have signage on the outside of the buses that actually say that this bus may be camera equipped and you may be subject to a fine. But are you specifically asking inside the bus itself, or?
Yeah, I think people would like to see the inside the bus too, so that they know that their ride is going faster because you're taking action
Yeah,
to help move their ride faster.
that's fair. So Lisa, let me take that back to customer communications, because there are two ways to do this. One is actually put up a physical sign, or you can actually remind customers that on the digital screens, which is a much simpler way to put this out there, right?
Yep.
So yeah, but
Yeah, that could work.
yeah.
And then where
definitely.
does the money go from the?
Where does the money go? Yeah, so the money is collected by Department of Finance and it comes back to the General Transportation Fund administered by the MTA.
To the MTA, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
One quick follow-up to that, Sunil. If it's a UPS truck or a FedEx truck or an Amazon cart or something, they're just going to consider these fines a cost of doing business. They're not going to change their behavior, I'm assuming.
You are right, Andrew. Although I want to say that under the regular speeding program run by the city DOT, they have a bundling system. But the ACE program at least does not have a bundling system, right? Each ticket stands on its own for those guys. So yeah, they may consider it part of their business, but they will keep racking up these fines. and maybe we should talk to the legislature to maybe potentially increase those fines also. But then you don't want to mess with the common person. So yeah, it's a fine balance.
Thanks. Trudy, you got a follow-up?
I have a follow-up to my question, and it's also a follow-up to the other questions that were asked. Again, it's about curbing the bus and pulling into the bus stop. Who is actually responsible for enforcing that? Is it DOT? And who would give a ticket to a bus that doesn't pull into the bus stop for no reason? I mean, sometimes the bus stop is blocked and I understand that. But when it's just easier for them to just not pull up to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Who is responsible then for enforcing that?
Yeah. So, I mean, as a member of the Department of Buses, it is the Department of Buses that's responsible. It's buses leadership that's responsible. And I will make sure to take this back to the vice president who runs our depots, who runs our depot operations, to enforce this message solidly down the line. You have that, you have my word, but that's really, we are responsible. I'm responsible. So I'm
it's
going to
not
take that back.
DOT. It's not DOT.
No, it's not DOT. No, it's not DOT. No, it's not.
Okay.
Sharon?
If there's a sixth ticket, is it $250 again, or do they start over with 50 In other words, does the 250 carry on?
The 250 carries on. Yes.
I like that one, Sharon. I like that one.
That's good. Stuart.
So the group you were talking about in your presentation, let's call them the repeat offenders or was it nine?
Recidivist.
Yeah.
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 We've taken a look to see whether they're, like Andrew was intimating that maybe they're delivery vans or
Yeah.
is there a pattern or anything we've seen through that? And if we're able to target that group even further through other means?
Fantastic. So we are absolutely doing that.
Right.
What we are doing is we have a way to trace back the registered owner of the vehicle using the license plate. And we have run logs against commercial violators. And we've actually sent out formal letters from the MTA signed by the president to the commercial violators, indicating to them that we are running this program and you're impeding motion of buses and impeding our customers' journey time. So yes, we have done that. After we implemented the bus stop and double parked enforcement mechanisms, we plan to do that one more time. But yes, the answer is yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Kalia.
Just remind everyone, her voice is a little fussy, so please let everyone hear.
We'll hear her.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I sound like Marge Simpson, but hi, everyone. Hello, Mr. Sunil. You guys answered a lot of my questions already, but I have a question to piggyback on what Trudy said. Can the camera capture when the bus is not obstructed and it's not pulling into the curb for the wheelchairs or the people that are required to use the lift to go exit and enter the buses? I'm so sorry, I'm not whispering, I just have no voice.
Yeah.
Because I see it quite often, and there are certain spots that I notice that it chronically happens, where it's not just the bus is being obstructed by a double parking, but it's actually the operator themselves that are parking the bus in the middle of the street. And a wheelchair user like me has to go to the corner, go out into the street, and then get onto the lift that
Right.
way
Right.
instead of the bus pulling in properly.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are no tickets for that, but that again goes back to re-instructing our operators to manage and deploy the lifts in a safe manner. And I hear your feedback, and Kali, I'm going to take that back again and talk to the Vice President of Operations in the Department of Buses to reiterate that message. But no, there is no ticketing mechanism for that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The other question I had was about your ticketing. And it was related to how you are calculating accessibility violations into these tickets, because sometimes traffic agents, there can be multiple violations and they put it on those tickets. If a person has blocked a lane and on top of it has somehow prevented a person from entering the bus, or some issue with accessibility, are you separating it out into two different violations in that one ticket, or is it just one ticket that they're issuing at the same time?
Good question.
Next.
No, we are actually separating that out into two tickets because it's really two infractions that they've committed. If they block our bus lanes, that's one ticket, and if they keep going and block our bus stops, that's another ticket. So yeah.
Thank you, Dante.
Yes, just a quick comment. Well, it's kind of one, the video earlier, I think that you guys should use that and promote that. That would actually allow you to see what the operator sees in real time. So I definitely think that you all need to use that to your advantage. And the last thing I will say is I met with government affairs from the MTA earlier today. They're planning to do the Brooklyn bus redesign in the late fall. I think that that's an opportunity for you all to educate people on this program moving forward. So just use that. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I
We'll
second
take
that.
Yeah.
Dante, I second your last one.
Okay, another follow-up on the follow-up. Actually, what Kalia, I want to follow up on Kalia's question. And just to clarify, because is the bus supposed to stop where the sign is or at the beginning of the thing or anywhere in between? Like I'm specifically on Second and Third Avenue, where usually there, and especially on Second Avenue and going downtown on both at 79th Street and at 86th Street, where the buses seem to stop the 101, 102, 103, and the 15, and they just seem to stop. You literally have to try to outguess them. Are they going to stop where the bus stop is? Are they going to stop somewhere further down the block? Are they going to stop where the shelter is? And to someone with a bad leg like me, just to try to sight them out. Right,
Yeah.
also. So is there a rule about where the bus should stop?
Yeah, so our operators have been reminded and re-instructed that they should stop close to the bus stop as safely as possible or close to the bus stop pole. Every bus stop has either a shelter or a bus stop pole or both, and they're supposed to stop right next to.
Well, that's my question. Is it the bus stop pole? Is it the shelter? Sometimes, especially again,
Where they
on the
can
east
get at.
side, on First, Second, Third, and Lexington, where sometimes the seats will be a little further than the pole, a little, or somewhere in between. So where are they supposed to stop? So we don't.
Okay, I think he's answered you, Trudy.
No,
They're supposed to stop at the bus shelter, right? There is no question about it. But if access to the bus shelter is blocked in some manner, then they may have to stop in a safe manner a little bit ahead of the bus shelter. But that's where, yeah.
The shelter, not the pole, because sometimes the pole.
He's answered you, Trudy.
Trudy,
I don't know.
but Trudy, we'll have somebody from bus operations come here. This is not the right group right now.
Yeah.
So we'll have somebody from
Exactly.
bus operations come
That would be
today.
very helpful.
Okay.
Last question.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I have to add, as I was looking at brochure, and I don't want to make sure, I'll raise my voice. What I'm trying to ask is, I've seen the brochure. What is your mission? Because I agree with Dante about doing those videos, but with the brochures you guys are giving out, are we gonna see more bus lanes in other parts of the boroughs? Because, there are some parts of the city, like we saw Fordham Road, we've seen Utica Avenue. But there are some areas that we see I'm gonna use Brooklyn, Brighton Beach, 86th Street, and Stuart, you agree with me, because those areas, buses do get stuck there, or trapped.
Mhm.
Is there something that you guys are gonna be working on in the future, and more brochures going out to the communities and maybe outside of the communities? Because this is a very good brochure, and I'd like to know, how can we encourage people to see this more? Because there are some elected officials, some will not even share this out unless they demand or be there are some very good, but there are some been a little not taking it seriously with information.
Of course. Alberto, do you want to address that?
That's what I was trying to get it.
Yeah, no, we can definitely get this out there. Just let us know, Chris, anywhere else you want us to put this information. I'll be happy to connect.
Thank you, Roberta.
Okay, I think we've pretty much reached our time limit. So thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been very
Thank you.
helpful.
Thank you all.
Of course.
Thank you.
It's been my pleasure, but thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we now actually have a quorum. So can we get an approval?
Oh, did I make the quorum?
Actually, Cicely.
Oh,
May we have an approval of today's agenda,
Motion to approve.
even though we're halfway through it?
Yes.
How about the minutes?
Make a motion to approve. I'm trying to go,
second,
Terrific.
I'm just trying to go fast.
Wonderful. Okay, so we were in the midst of discussing the Judge Lyman's ruling. Did you or Brian have anything else to add before we move on?
No, the next steps are a hearing. The next steps will just follow a regular court calendar. That is we'll see if there's any sneaky business that tries to go on, but right now the federal government has been enjoined, I don't think that's a technical term, from trying to take any action to halt projects or halt money, as they said they were going to do. So they agreed to do it.
Was that part of the ruling?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
So at this moment, there's no time limit. Technically,
On the preliminary injunction, it stays until there's a ruling on the entirety of the whole case, which has not yet been heard. And that was
that could
waiting.
happen in the fall, I'm guessing.
Well, it was waiting for the federal government to file paperwork in the administrative record, which they have put off. And as late as Tuesday afternoon or late Tuesday morning, we're saying that it was still in process and it could still change. So I don't know if the administrative record came out or not, but they were still filing additional paperwork. So but after the case on Tuesday is when he came out with the preliminary injunction, which was the next step. So that is nothing will happen, nothing can happen. Nothing is supposed to happen. Let me put it that way. Nothing is supposed to happen until the next set of court dates that have been agreed upon by both parties.
Okay, one last question before I call on Trudy. Do we have any idea when the next round of federal transportation subsidies are due to us?
Brian, you were just in they're different subsidies. So there's the
Yeah,
next
they're all-
transportation authorization is in 26 or 27.
26.
26, but usually that takes forever. And there's a bunch of continuing resolutions that happen before then, but Brian was just at the APTA legislative conference and heard a lot about what is, what should be, what can be, and what might not be, right?
Yeah, I mean, the formula funds come continuously to the state. I mean, there's a regular schedule. If there's any interruption, I'm sure we'll hear about it. Otherwise,
So I'm sure we're scheduled to get some towards the latter part of 25, right?
I mean, I don't know exactly what the regular time is for that, but we will hear if there's
I'm sure
some
we
sort of
will.
interruption.
So federal highways comes differently than federal transit dollars. Federal transit comes mostly through grant funding. And that the MTA has said that they're going to continue to apply through the regular grants that they apply for. Some of those grants have been disappeared. But we'll see if that's allowed under the way the federal authorization legislation was crafted, or if that was done under a different federal legislation, and if there's executive powers that are allowed to make any of those changes.
Yeah.
It's a very litigious atmosphere.
Is it?
So it's, it's more management by politics and law than by policy. Just stating the facts, sir, but
Got it.
that's what we've been seeing.
Trudy and then Sharon.
yeah, it is my understanding that federal DOT, I'm not sure who will be appealing the appeal, but that they are now going to, in a very short period of time, appeal. I don't know how you say it in legal terms, the lawyers can correct me, but they're going to be appealing the appeal and they're not letting it go. And that in the meantime, there are other ways of their withholding some of the funds that we're supposed to get on a regular basis, that, federal funds that we counted on. And I was wondering if you've heard what I've heard also, and if we're going to try to do, or we intend to do something about it.
So they were still deciding if they were going to appeal as of this morning, I think, the US DOT. They
Oh, well,
agreed.
my sources say they are going to do it.
Okay, well, I would think they would make sense, but Judge Lyman basically said that that the plaintiffs, in this case, the MTA
Yeah.
and state, and have a very high likelihood of success. So, they can appeal, but they would probably
Is
get.
that in his ruling?
Yes. And the agreement was that the federal government would take no action, no more threats, no more action that was the term was, what was it, conditional, that they may not withhold federal funds, that they, that any budgetary uncertainty would, lead to delays in implementing projects, which would be not just for New York issue, but would lead to an eternal fog of uncertainty and chaos.
But they weren't forbidden to do it.
No, they're forbidden to do it.
Yes, they're forbidden.
Are those words in the?
Yes. Yeah. Forbidden.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Okay.
somebody is going to try to do or.
I'm sure they're going to try.
Or, you know, forbid the forbidden or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right, that they are forbidden to take the compliance measures, that was the term that they had threatened. Which is why in Jano's statements, he said that there are no more threats are permitted, but you know, we know who we're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So-
why I was wondering,
Exactly.
well, if you guys, through your sources, could follow up on this, because as I said, it's my
Yes.
understanding that they're finding ways to undo.
I am sure the
forbidden.
FTA has a lawsuit in preparation for if they try this.
Yep, the MTA, the AG,
Yep.
you know, the city DOT joined on to the
No, I know,
MTA's,
especially.
there are-
fish.
we are in extremely close contact with the attorneys from the other advocacy organizations and those advocacy organizations that were participants in the lawsuit. So,
And we're in touch with Michael Gerard, right?
and well, he's part of that
Yeah.
group.
He's the
Yeah.
maven.
Yeah. Sharon,
Oh, just, you had mentioned that the people who are arguing against it had some good arguments. Did you? is that what
arguing
you
against
said?
what?
Against congestion pricing. I thought you said that they.
I didn't say that.
Okay, I misunderstood you.
I never heard that.
No, I never heard. All right, let's move on because I have a lot to report. So, obviously, you all know that Rockaway A and S shuttle service is back after 17 weeks. We got an inspection. What they did on the Hamels Y and the South Channel Bridge are really amazing. That is going to last so long now. I mean, and they've even made it more structurally fortified against much bigger storms than even Sandy was. That's how much they've rebuilt this thing. Many people on the Rockaway Peninsula were requesting that the shuttle service from Rockaway Park to Far Rockaway be continued. That was a very convenient thing for folks, not having to go right up to Broad Channel to go back down to the rest of the Rockaway Peninsula. There's no indication that is happening. And I've been pushing.
Why?
I don't think there's enough buses, but maybe Kate knows.
What buses?
Didn't you say the bus?
No, the Rockaway Park to Far Rockaway shuttle that's been
Oh,
running
shuttle.
during
Oh,
this,
that
the
shuttle.
train.
Right.
That-
But
yeah.
he is correct, because the elected officials have asked, can they keep the shuttle buses? They did say that to Jen.
Oh, they're not gonna keep the shuttle buses,
I
but
know.
the Rockaway shuttle of the train from one end of the Rockaways
I
to
was
the other.
there. I
People
was
have
there in
been
person.
requesting that. And I've been requesting all A service go to either Far Rockaway or Rockaway Park and the C be extended. So because when we went out there, the development in the western part of the peninsula,
Mhm.
near Rockaway Park and even just east of Rockaway Park, massive high rises and everything. Why should those folks be relegated to a shuttle train? Nobody else in the whole system is relegated to shuttle. Yes, there are 6 or 7 through trains in the rush hour, but that's it. I just think it's ridiculous. But anyway, that project went really well. Here's something not so good. Of the MTA's 224 active substations, 81 are in poor or marginal condition. And you all remember what happened with the State Street substation in downtown Brooklyn,
Mhm.
where F train riders had to walk through the tunnels and out. It was just unbelievable. We don't want to see that happen again. Obviously, the new capital program are going to help address some of these issues. But the substations are ancient and haven't been dealt with. And you just,
75 years old.
yeah, you just can't let this kind of stuff go on. You just can't. You have probably all heard Broadway Junction will become 100% ADA compliant. That is an amazing statistic. Between the A, the C, the J, the Z, and the L platforms, that's a great distance from underground to the top. And that's going to be made, and there's a lot of other development and building going on around Broadway Junction. But this should have actually been done a while back, but it's going to happen. And that is great news. And then they are going to make major emergency communication upgrades. We got a visual tour of emergency communication rooms. They're from the 20s and 30s. They are so out of date. They are so pitiful. They have such water damage and other structural damage. We just cannot have this important range of communication, flooded or absorbed by a building collapse or something. These emergency communication rooms are very important. We haven't dealt with some of these things, and the new capital programs are going to deal with these kinds of things. You have probably seen, if you've ridden the B division, the new countdown clocks. They are so good. They are so much more readable, and they are so much more accurate. Yesterday at the meeting, because they were not talking about A division, I asked if those were coming. And they said that will come in about a year. And Q thanked me for asking that question because he's been working on that quite a bit. The A division, some of them are still crinkly, like not even LED readouts. They're just ancient readouts. And the A division carries an awful lot of folks, needless to say. So we want the same quality of countdown clocks, but they're also on the screens. They're very much more accurate. They've made an update in the accuracy of these things. So that's good.
Crinkly, is that a
Crinkly.
technical term?
Well, frankly, yeah. We have actually now facing the best subway performance in many decades. That was reported yesterday and many of us have experienced it. The waits are, since they did the extra trains this summer, the waits are so much less and the regularity is better and the on-time performance is in the high 80s and low 90s on most of our lines, and on the commuter trains, it's between 98 and 99%. That's how much they've hit the schedule. So things seem to be better. That could be why ridership is up. Somebody asked earlier, was it because of congestion pricing? I think it's also because of the service. The service level has much improved. And they're working on stations. And I told Stuart, for those of you who didn't arrive early, we're going to have a speaker about station cleaning, how they're doing that, how they determine what parts, how frequent, and that sort of thing. It's about time, but it's way overdue, needless to say.
We're looking at Jim.
But Andrew,
Yes.
before, on the thing of schedule, something I've noticed, and at least, again, on the, the 6, which is that on the time, what do you call it? The time clock, I call it the time clock.
Countdown clock.
Countdown clock, yeah. That sometimes a train will pull out and then the countdown clock says next train 7 minutes or 8 minutes, and then next one 9 minutes. I mean, but there seems to be a large time
Something could have
difference.
happened that made that gap happen.
No, but if it was just a one-time thing, I wouldn't be bringing it up, but it even happened this morning where the train was just pulling out. And then on the countdown clock, there's 6 minutes and then 7 minutes. And
I've seen that.
why is there 1 minute between?
I
and
can't answer
6 minutes?
because I don't know what condition made that
No,
appear.
but it's on a regular.
Today, on my trip down here, the countdown clock said 2 minutes till the next one, and when I went down the stairs, it was right there. So the A division clocks are not quite as accurate as the B division now. So take that,
But
it's coming. The
I'm
improvement
not
is coming.
talking about that. I am talking about the schedule where it'll
It
say.
may not be scheduled that way, Trudy, but somebody might have held the door. There could have been a delay. Somebody got sick. Who knows?
There was a stall train
And
today.
that's what,
Things happen.
and they even it out as they
But they
can.
don't even it out. That's the whole.
Sometimes they try.
They try.
They try.
Yeah, but anyway, another good piece of news is, and I'm sure you've all heard that Andy Byford will be returning to do the
Yes.
Penn Station redevelopment. I had a nice talk with him. He's looking forward to coming back to New York. He loves New York, needless to say. And he has a lot of ideas for making Penn Station the kind of terminal that we all want it to be.
It's wonderful because everybody, at least online, is so thrilled.
Train Daddy is
about it.
coming back.
Train Daddy's
Yeah.
Train Daddy has returned.
Train Daddy's coming home. I mean, that
He's
was.
very happy. He's temporarily living in Florida, I believe, so he's very happy to come back to New
Oh,
York.
no, he's keeping that place.
You of course know that the prime thing that he was working on, high-speed rail for Amtrak, specifically the Dallas to Houston, the state has decided they're not going to pay for it, so that's dead right now. It could come back, he said, in another time, but for right now, it's dead. And
He's used to that, though.
he's used to
Things
that.
happen
And by the way,
again.
we are in much better shape than many other states. Our state realizes that our transportation system is the economic engine of the city, which is the economic engine of the state. And we need Philadelphia and Pennsylvania to realize that because SEPTA is facing massive service cuts, whole commuter lines, whole trolley lines, diminution of subway service, and massive fare hikes. The CTA and Metro in Chicago are facing this, and some BART area in the San Francisco region are also facing massive service cuts and massive fare hikes if their states don't realize how important these systems are to their survival. I mean, but New York does, and I'm gonna go into this New York State budget shortly, so stay tuned for what's in
Andrew,
there.
do you know if he's going to be settling in New York or?
He will be. Yes, he absolutely will
Well,
be.
when he comes back, may I suggest that we invite him?
Absolutely.
One of our meetings.
Of course we will.
Whether it's a big PCAC meeting.
Well, I think it's a PCAC meeting.
Yeah, that we, but.
Penn
that
Station
we-
is commuter rail.
Everybody's gonna want this.
And subway.
Could we get our invitation now that we know that
Absolutely.
he's coming back?
I have a standing
If I
invitation
may-
for him.
No, but not a standing invitation, specifically.
Yes, I will, Trudy. Let me move on because we're. running out
Okay,
of-
but that would be very.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Helpful for the new people.
Another piece of good news, they have done some reconstruction of signals between 42nd Street, Times Square, and 34th Street on the 123 line. And as a result, overnight 3 service now doesn't end at Times Square. It goes down to Penn Station, 34th Street on the 123 line. So that's great if you have a connection to make. So that's continuing great progress. And a piece of great news, 3 peregrine falcon chicks were hatched on the Brooklyn Tower of the Verrazano Bridge last week.
Oh.
Yes, and they're doing fine. And
What are their names?
I don't know. their names.
Oh.
And they're doing great.
They're doing wonderfully and they,
Trudy was
on
there.
New
She
York
has them,
one,
so-
on New
Trudy was
York
there,
one.
yeah.
To see.
With her bad leg, she still got up there.
New York one was there and they actually
So
showed the hatching of the eggs and being fed by their parents and.
And I believe this has
Oh, so
happened
no
on the
wonder I saw
Marine
something
Parkway
red on
Bridge
the
as
bridge.
well as several other bridges in the New York region.
They look like
chickens.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, can they go faster than a bus?
Probably.
Maybe.
Yes.
I'll put it in the chat for those 3.
Chicks.
That's
Their
great.
names are Genevieve, Marcella, and Sky Forager.
Did they have like, but I didn't the garden class like them? Do they know who's the grandmother?
Sky forager, that's a mouthful.
Sky forward.
Oh, well, let me move on because there's a lot of other things to report. The state budget, which virtually is entirely what the MTA needed, the $68 billion capital in budget improvement, which thanks to Governor Hochul and the members of the state legislature, they realized how important this is to keep this system going. Includes, listen to this list, construction of the IBX from Bay Ridge along the old freight line, New York Connecting Railroad up through, East New York and up through Glendale, Maspeth, all the way to Jackson Heights. That will start and that will be light rail and that is exciting. Rehabilitation of the Grand Central Artery. You may have heard how bad that was. I asked yesterday. They've done a little bit of propping up of the thing under Park Avenue around Grand Central, but it's in desperate shape of rehabilitation, and this will help pay for that. Thousands of new subway and commuter rail cars, thousands of them. Just amazing how we are going to be replacing our oldest cars. I will miss some of them. I love conversational seating, but they do jerk start and they do have pretty bad MDBF lately, so we need the new cars.
Please, we need them.
Yes, and more modern and more signal upgrades to CBTC on many more lines. The Fulton Street and Liberty Avenue lines of the A and C are coming. 6th Avenue finally, so that the F, Queens Boulevard East, Queens Boulevard West, and Culver, which is all great, will have a middle part that will also be CBTC affiliated and can, so the trains could go from 179th Street to Coney Island all on CBTC. That would be amazing. We really need that. It's going to upgrade our maintenance facilities. Some of our shops are really old. I know that Demetrius has referred to one of the East New York shops as really, they can't even get all parts of areas under and over the trains to service them, that they are so old and they were afraid that the ceilings will collapse. So we're going to get much better maintenance facilities. We're going to renew our electric systems, which is both commuter rail and the subway, very important. It's going to mean accessibility at another 65 or more subway stations, which is great. That still won't put us to the half of 472, but it will get us closer and much closer to what Andy Byford promised, which was you're never more than 2 stops from an accessible station, which will be wonderful. And this is also for railroad. The Long Island Railroad is largely accessible. Metro North has a little ways to go to get to be the level of Long Island Railroad. I think they're only missing 2 or 3 stations on the Long Island Railroad. Is it 5?
Yeah.
I thought it was 3, but you may be right.
Well, Mitzvah's Point.
Long Island Railroad.
Hunters Point Avenue,
Yeah, well,
You forgot East New York?
it's New York.
well, yeah, East New York needs more than.
I'm just saying it that way. I'm not trying to get anyone sick here. Let's move on.
That'll be not in this plan, that'll be.
We would love to see a connection of East New York and the Atlantic Avenue L train station, much as they're doing on Livonia Junius.
Yeah.
Doing an entire complex so you can connect between them. That would be, and there's a lot of development around the East New York.
Yes.
So there's no
Yes.
reason not to do this.
Absolutely.
A lot of safety enhancements we're doing, a lot more platform barriers that they're putting in. There's going to be 150 more stations, I think, this year done with platform barriers.
They're so dumb.
Well, they don't speak, but they help.
I was in the station.
You don't feel a little better having them near?
Oh, they're just ridiculous.
I like them on Wall Street on the 2-3. I think they're
Agreed.
awesome there because that is such a,
It's an island platform and there's not that much room. So,
it's such a, it's scary to me, even when I'm by myself.
But if you're at 125th Street, and I'm gonna use that station, when we have a lot.
Which one?
I was gonna say 125 Lex.
Thank you.
Sorry. As I was saying, you see a lot of wheelchairs and walkers, they're actually, it makes it easy for them because it's actually gives them a chance to lean on something. So when the train comes, they can move right.
Shouldn't lean on it, those.
No, that's.
Not heavy
that's when
body.
it's- I mean,
You can
that's-
just like lean on it. It's not going to keel over. They're pretty strong, but
No say a boy.
you know.
Well, I'm only talking, Lisa, just to be safe, I'm only talking about the ones who are, they can't sit in those chairs because they're pains in the lower hip. So I'm only saying.
I know some people that are pains in the lower hip.
Yes, but I'm trying to, let's just focus on,
Okay.
okay, the walker I'm trying to say.
Even the upper hip.
Even the upper hip.
She said it.
Let me go on. There's going to be modern fare gates at 150 stations at a minimum. We need these new fare gates for a host of reasons to get people with luggage through, people with wheelchairs through, stop more fare evasion. Walkers, if you've been on a bus lately, I'm getting so many bus complaints that people cannot walk down the aisles between the walkers, the wheelchairs and the push carts and everything. It is strollers. It is really tough getting through a bus lately. But anyway, more zero emission buses, very important. We got to get rid of these gas guzzling old buses that we have. Increased resiliency, lots of important resiliency work was done on the South Channel Bridge, needs to be done on the Metro North Hudson line, obviously. They've had landslides, they've had the water race up over, a lot of resiliency. And here's the last piece of great news. To pay for all of this, 1.2 billion will come from what the state had allocated for Penn Station redevelopment, but which the administration decided they want to take over. So that gives us an additional $1.2 billion to do this kind of work.
Maybe,
Exactly.
maybe,
Maybe.
because the feds.
But there's a lot of great stuff in that
I'm
budget.
following Whoopi Goldberg, who says she will not mention his name. But anyway, the person who was elected president has said that he has not decided where the money is going to go to, so that.
He's claimed to take it over the project, so you gotta pay for it then.
I'm just saying that nothing is ever,
I know.
I
know
shouldn't
what
be
you're
wearing
saying.
my political hat, but I am.
I know what you're saying. Let's move to the executive director report.
No, before you finish your report, I
Sure.
want to do something.
You do?
As all of you know, or some of you know, I'm a pack rat, I'm a hoarder, I save. While I'm home flat on my back too often.
Sure.
Because of my ailments, I've been cleaning out a lot of stuff, and I told Andrew about this, I called.
You did.
Anyway, this is the annual report, and I think you may all find it interesting to see what were the problems there. But what's even more interesting is that on the whole board that they have listed, the board, not the PCAC or anything. There is only one person who was on in 2007 and who is still on the board. And his name is Andrew Albert. So I'm going to pass.
Know him?
I don't know. I don't know if he wants to know you, so. But anyway, so I brought this in and I thought you might be interested. I'll pass it around. I do want it back though, because we
Thanks.
orders or whatever. But I just thought you'd be interested in seeing this and seeing what were the, unfortunately, in 18 years, there are still a lot of the same problems and a lot of the same issues to deal with after 18.
But I think we're in a much better place right now.
Well, I'm just saying that it's interesting, but you're still there.
I am.
Yeah, so anyway,
Exciting.
I'll pass it around.
Chris, you had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to add, on your report for the Rockaways, I did attend the press conference. I was there, and yes, I was, and it's kind of, and here's something that's serious. It's not a rumor, it's a true story. As we were walking up to the train, back upstairs, we were supposed to be on an R211, didn't show up. We had to go on an R46. When you mentioned the jerk, Governor fell, was ready to fall, and guess where she lands on?
On you.
Yes, and I have witnesses, so you can't say I didn't, I'm not lying. And then Jano starts to fall, and then I said, anyone else? And,
Jana wasn't used to the jerk of an R46? Come on.
well, this one was acting weird, and it was actually very dirty, so let's just say, good
They
thing.
they don't all jerk. There's still some out there that start smoothly, but they're aging. Needless to say, they're gone.
They come to Q and N, but bottom line is, I'm going quick, thank you for agreeing with me, what I'm saying is when I went on that train bridge, it felt like you're flying with air, you don't feel like it's shaking or rocking and rolling, it just felt much safer there.
Because they did the different kind of travel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, I already spoke about our day in court. We will have more. We had a great turnout of advocates in advance of our court date, so that was terrific. I'm going to ask Brian, Kara, and Jack to give very brief little updates on some of the things that we're working on.
That sounded like someone's name, Brian Karajak.
Brian, Kara, and Jack. Because so that we have time for old business, new business, and public input and
Indeed.
Q&A. So in no particular order, I'm going to ask Kara to talk about some of the Omni issues that you may have seen, read about, heard about, and experienced.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. So you may have seen some articles lately. We've seen a lot on social media as well. Basically, as the MTA prepares to completely phase out the MetroCard by the end of this year, there are a lot of complaints and issues that are coming up around Omni, where a lot of people are finding that they'll either be charged multiple times per tapping, sometimes you won't get charged, and then the charges will rush in all at once. The MTA claims that no one is being overcharged and that a lot of that is just, the charges stacking later on. But rider trust around Omni is not very high at the moment. Also issues about the fare cap and making sure that you actually are not getting charged past the $34 within a week. And so we are working, Brian suggested, we all thought it was a great idea to do a survey on Omni that we will circulate to members once that's live, and we're going to circulate it with the public as well. So you're free to share that with your networks so that we can get some hard data on the issues that are coming up and look into ways that we can help push for solutions.
Right.
I heard about the late charges. I didn't hear about the double charges.
Yeah, the double
Well,
charges, yeah.
People think that they're double
They think
charges,
that, yes.
but it's regardless of whether or not it's actually a double charge, it doesn't instill trust.
That came
in the
up
public.
a little
So
bit
it's-
yesterday, and we were told that Cubic is working on that very issue and hope to have it fixed within this month. I mean,
That's great, but if they're taking money out of someone's bank account who doesn't have extra money,
If they are.
extra money.
Or if it's really just a late charge and people think they've been charged again.
That is,
But that happens
MTA is
from north.
Yeah.
It's,
That's different.
it may not actually be double charges, but we just want to make sure that we're putting some numbers to that. And once people feel like they're being cheated by the MTA, it's hard to regain that trust. So we just want to make sure that we're.
Yeah, that's why I asked, are you making sure that they're being all of these folks are getting the proper communications to show that their issue is important and they're taking it seriously and they will tell them when everything is working perfectly again.
Yes,
Right.
that's another piece of it.
That's,
We're gonna-
that's another
yeah.
piece of it.
I'll
as
wait till
well.
you guys finish.
Okay.
When you finish.
I mean, I know somebody who has had such trouble with their Omni, like tapping and that it wouldn't let them in. That they felt compelled that there was only one way for them to enter the system.
I know what
And
you're saying.
that's not the way we want them to.
Yeah.
And even the cop who stopped them had heard about the Omni issues. So it's, not the bogus one, but the actual one. So and the MTA knows it's an issue too. So, it's people's money and people's lives.
But I think 3/4 of entries are with Omni now.
Yes,
It's up to about
Yes.
80%.
80%, yeah,
Firefighters
even more.
this year have-
10 hours.
By the end of the year.
I wouldn't push it.
The
way
employees
things
don't
are
have them
going.
yet.
What do you mean?
It should be by the end of the year. They showed a mock-up of what the cards will look like for employees and consultants at the last board meeting. But they're in.
No employees have gotten.
No,
Oh,
That's gonna be the last phase. They're
Yeah.
working on getting the public on board first and then they'll move to the internal.
Especially reduced fare and student as Kalia's holding up.
Right, all right. And Brian, speaking, as we talk about then reduced fare, you want to give a update on fair fares and where we are there?
Yeah, so the city has been working through its budget process and like previous years, the council in their response to the mayor's executive budget, proposed expanding fair fares to 200% of the federal poverty level and put $57 million towards doing that. The mayor then responded with keeping it at the 145% of the federal poverty level that it currently is and kicking in an additional 20 million. We're working with Speaker Adams's office, Riders Alliance and Community Service Society to keep pushing for 200% in the budget and expansion to the railroads. We're working on circulating a letter to city council members to sign on, saying that we're just tired of kicking the can down the road on this issue and getting, 25% increases, and that we should just go ahead and move to 200. Right now, only about 27% of the eligible people are currently signed up for the program. It's a bit of a separate problem, but we'd like to see enrollment increase as well. So we're working on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's leads me to Jack. Jack and I have had, Jack in particular has spent so much time in Albany. He loves it there, but we
Moved away.
yeah.
it's a great town. There's so much to do.
It is one of the best things is getting food to come back. Well, the East River Tunnel, the East River Tunnel, the East River Tunnel project has reduced the number of trains that go there and come back. And one of the train staff that works at the Albany Wednesday Station told us that they've seen double and triple the number of people coming in on the trains that are moving because of the reduction in the number of trains. But Jack has been working more than he probably thought he would on pursuing the issues that we have all talked about. And Jack, why don't you give us an update on where we are?
Yeah, so Lisa and I went up last week.
That's great.
Feels like longer ago.
Feels like
It was
longer.
not.
I
No,
know.
so from Wednesday to Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And met with a whole host of legislators as well as the central staff within the Senate who kind of aid in helping decide which bills get to the floor. So in terms of the Rider Representation Act, which I think is what we're all maybe most familiar with, that has been a priority for Senator Gennardis, who's the bill sponsor. So I mean, we're somewhat optimistic that we can get it through at least hopefully the Senate this year. And then Lisa and I are going to be meeting. We have had meetings and we are going to be meeting with the next level up on the food chain of Assembly Program and Council staff tomorrow to discuss the bill. I would say they have, there's been concerns, but I'm hopeful as we get higher, we can address those concerns, mainly around precedent, but I keep saying PCAC is a very unique organization, and what else? In terms of
The Rider Act.
Oh, yes, we introduced a new bill with sponsored by Senator Gennardis and Andrew's friend, Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal, which would broaden the slate of elected officials who can recommend people to the governor's office to be appointed to our councils, with the goal in mind of making sure we have full councils, particularly for the LIRR Commuter Council, which I don't know, you might know is like half empty and has been that way for quite a while.
More than half.
Yeah.
Even while the trains are 98%.
Yeah, the trains are full. Yeah. We need our council ridership to match that of the
Right,
actual
yeah.
service.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't have to do so much with us as the politics of
Yes,
of
which is why-
Nassau and Suffolk County.
Well, but also to make it easier for people to recommend. Right now, it's very rigid determination of who recommends to Albany. And that each of those nominating electeds has to recommend 3 members per vacancy.
No, I'm very aware of that,
Yeah,
but I'm
so-
saying that it's not so much about us or about Long Island Railroad or anything about I've just come back from a big state committee meeting.
No, right, but we understand about Nassau and Suffolk. This would broaden it to other electeds who are not
Not just county
Not
executives,
just
assembly
the
members.
county-
Stand, but it's going to be a fight which we may be brought into. I'm just.
Okay, that's,
Well,
yep,
we'll see.
I'll see.
Yeah,
ready.
well, thank you for that.
The other,
Yeah,
and the other,
We don't.
the other couple of things that Jack has been really pursuing and that we have worked with op-eds and with other outreach is the senior disabled Medicare eligible AMP, allowing riders with senior disabled and Medicare eligible who are those
DEI.
riders to be able to use their discounts in the morning peak. And we have a lot of support for that.
Yeah.
The one of the things that we have heard was that the MTA prefers if we don't legislate fare increases and we say, well, that would be great, except our members can't sit around the table and raise their hand and make a motion. So
Can't even count
it's very
towards the vote.
circular. But we're working on a number of different approaches for managing that because we anticipate that the fare changes would be brought up this summer. So we're building a consensus around some of the issues like fair fares and City Ticket Weekly as well.
By the way, one of the things that was mentioned a few minutes ago about we won't know what the feds are going to do to get back at us and stop which kind of funding. The one thing that they have mentioned, which they could threaten and which we will know is the funding of phase 2 of Second Avenue. That might be the first thing they try.
They have said publicly that they will not,
And you believe that, right?
but they said it. And they, I think that there has been some evidence that you, just because you say you wanna, doesn't mean you can.
Tell that to Sean Duffy.
Well, just because you tweeted or go on Fox and say that you can, doesn't mean you actually can. So, Jack, if I,
I think that covers it.
Kara, Brian, Jess. Okay.
And
We're also looking for, we're looking at the attendance of our members across councils. We're looking for a removal mechanism for members who do not meet the threshold. It's less of an issue in this council, but we have somebody at LIRCC who has not been there in over a year. And we're checking with the
Taking
governor's
up a hard
office.
to get seat.
Not that, it's, they count toward a quorum.
toward a quorum.
And we can't do
Right.
business at the council because they're that number. So we are waiting to hear back from the governor's appointments office on that. And that it shouldn't take any legislative action, just a decision from them if we can make our own decisions there.
Trudy.
So,
yeah, it is my understanding, and you might have heard this or whoever has been dealing in Albany, that there may be a special session to reconsider the whole budget that was accepted, not just us, but everybody and everything. So I would suggest that before we go ahead with planning, and this is not what the feds, the person who shall not be named, is has also capable of doing in withholding funds. But well, I guess this is more a question. If the MTA is not going too far ahead with any of these things, because they may be stopped mid, again, that's my understanding. If there
They
is a
are.
They're
reconsideration.
moving forward.
They're
with a
moving
lot of
forward. They've
contracts.
already committed half of their, they've already said that half the money's already spoken for. This capital plan has $14 billion that they're anticipating from the federal government. I would imagine that they would put that toward the end if they expect that there's going to be any issues with it.
But what happens if there is a reconsideration of a lot of these funds?
It would be $14 billion that they would have to that would be reconsidered, and I would, that was an assumption based on previous years. It doesn't mean, I think that they would, that's actually on a high level compared to other previous years. So even if it comes in at 10, they would need to find 4, but they wouldn't have to do it at the beginning. They could do it in ongoing years as the capital program commences.
I hope you're right.
We'll see. Chris, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to add, because you mentioned Omni, because when you mentioned when people get double pay, as the tester on that, I did try that out a year ago, and I did get it reimbursed back because it's in the app here. So it does work. The problem is what we're seeing is, and that's why I won't mention the rest of the new business because it's on the table, regarding Omni, because Andrew asked me to bring some in. It's lack of communication or people are not reading. So that's something we need to watch because it's actually in this
Some
borough.
of it's lack of communication for sure.
I was ready for you to say that, Andrew.
There's a
and I
lot of
agree.
misinformation.
And it's not just in this borough, it's actually Brooklyn as well, and partially
Yeah.
Queens, but.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, I have been going out as a community outreach officer. And the funny thing is it's in the higher levels, it's the 3 boroughs. One borough is actually low. And it's actually the Bronx is actually has the lowest number because there's been less issues there, but it's not like it's life threatening. It's more in, if you go in the senior category, there is an issue and there's a disability category, but if we put them all together, Lisa, you're correct. It is all the boroughs, but if you split in half, it's 3 boroughs. It's not like it's BBQ, it's just BQM.
BBQ is a barbecue.
Yes, I know that. That's why there was I know you never say that.
Couldn't resist it.
I know. I make you smile. That's good.
Oh, so M doesn't count for barbecue?
Mr.
Barbecue
Barbecue
is made from meat.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is-
or Miss BBQ, Miss
Let's,
Trudy.
let's go on to old business. Anyone have any items of old business?
Well, you already mentioned the.
Aside from Stewart, yeah,
No,
we
no.
tried, and the person is on vacation and has said that they will be here in June.
Well, I think I brought this up when we were.
Wait, Stewart, you were gonna say something to that?
And just prior to the start of the recording, we were talking about, the focus is on station cleaning. We did talk sometimes about car cleaning,
Yeah.
but just an observation that I made prior to the start of the recording. The one line lately, for the last month and a half, 2 months. The exterior of the cars just don't seem to be getting washed with the frequency that they used to get. There may be an explanation. The interiors seem to be.
Yeah, I told Stuart that there has been several weekends where one trains didn't make it all the way to Van Cortlandt and into the yard there. But they ended at 2:38 because they were doing work at the 242nd Street Van Cortlandt station. Whether that affected the car cleaning, it could be.
4, 5, and 6 have also, some of them are not in the greatest shape, to put it mildly.
Sure.
And we can add the A train as well.
And one of the things I told you about the budget and everything was improving the maintenance facilities. That has to happen. Some cars can't even get worked on. They have to only get worked on one of the ends instead of both ends like it should be. So, well, thank God this budget is coming, hopefully, and we're going to improve our very important system.
But we just better be very careful that something doesn't change.
Yeah, indeed,
Um,
indeed. Old business, anyone?
Wait,
Otherwise,
Carl, and we have a couple public, Mr. Questions.
questions?
or input/questions.
Mr. X has got his hand up, I see,
And Carl.
and Carl Herrera. Mr. X, you ready?
Hey, double A.
That's
You check
me.
the chat. Yeah, you can check the chat regarding my old and new business issues. I have several, but I checked one of the chats I sent you earlier today. And then I'll say this much. Jano and Demetrius need to do something with the driver, the Q12 bus driver and dispatch I met on Memorial Day, the same day we lost Charlie Randall. Forcing me to take a long walk on Northern Boulevard. Let's go up a hill. Because Northern Boulevard supposed to close when it's not. Doesn't help me. That's disrespectful. For dispatch to say Northern Boulevard, we're turning the bus here because Northern Boulevard is closed. When it's not, and before I arrive at my destination, I see the N20 G bus right there. No. How can Northern Boulevard be closed if vehicles are still running on it? Below the Queensland border, before 12 p.m. Are you serious? Does this driver know how to tell time? Because if he doesn't, he should work for the MTA, which has the money thrown away. And also stated, between Marlboro and Queens, I mentioned to Jeno back in July. Yeah,
Did you get the, Mr. X, did you get the number of the vehicle?
No, I didn't. I have to check my notes and give you more information. And as I said, I told Jeno back in July. We have two buses running between Queens and Marlboro across the Whiteside Bridge. What happened to the Throgsneck and Tribal bridges? Is there a bridge one? We can't get buses to run between two boroughs across those bridges? There are many destinations you can serve. I shouldn't have to leave my borough, enter Manhattan, then into Queens via the Tribal Bridge. That's
Mr. X, the M60 runs across the Triborough Bridge.
Yes, but from Manhattan. Do we have any buses
And
running?
from Queens.
No, but do we have buses running between
Yes,
my borough
for that.
and Queens? Towards the Triborough and.
We've called for that.
Yeah, we agree.
We've called for that, yes.
We agree.
Oh, okay, but so when are we getting buses to run across the Triborough and Throgsneck Bridge between Queens and Marlboro? That's what I'd like to know. That's what I mentioned to Jen.
Please stop yelling. Stop yelling. We're not the ones who make the buses. We agree with you. Okay?
So how much do we have to pay? That's what I'd like to know.
We would like to know that as well.
We got to get the price. What's the problem?
But we're gonna find out, don't you worry.
Thank you.
Carl, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I don't know if this is old business or new business, but regarding the second transfer, I know that they're doing a temporary 6-month pilot with the Queens bus redesign, but it doesn't address like if somebody's taking a bus in Queens and getting out in Manhattan and needs to take another bus. Like years ago, I used to have to go to York Avenue and I used to take the M31, but I took a Queens bus to a subway and then I took the M31, so it was always a double fare back then. So what about those type of issues where are they going to try to make that some type of permanent resolution for always have a second transfer for people that travel into borough?
What they said yesterday was that they were going to do a pilot for about 6 months, see how that works out, and then determine how to move forward from there.
But not for those kind of.
Not for those kind of transfers, however, Carl.
Okay.
Maybe
they could look into that.
Largely, it has to do with the Queens bus redesign and how that's making people change and how frequently they have to change and what the time limit is on the bus that they're waiting for next. So they're looking at that.
Okay, but I'm just proposing that maybe they could do something permanent for all 5 boroughs. Like I sent an email about that a while back.
All right. Did you get a response?
No, I sent it to you.
Oh,
to the,
okay. Yeah.
To the group.
And you got a response. Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay.
New business. New business.
Kalia has her hand raised.
Oh, Kalia's hand is up. Sorry. Go ahead, Kalia.
Okay, I don't know if this is new business or old business, but this is about the Omni cards. The first part about it is, again, I'm bringing it up about the material of the cards. That's why I'm showing it to you. The material of these cards are absolutely insane, ridiculous. Look at this. This is the student Omni cards.
Yeah,
How
we have
long
to
is it going to
change.
be?
That's gonna change,
It'll
Kalia.
be at the next school year, in September.
By the fall, that's gonna be plastic. That's not gonna be cardboard like it is now, which is ridiculous.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
You mentioned it last month.
I mentioned it at last month's meeting.
They
It's
just can't
ridiculous.
reissue it to all the students at this point in the school year because it ends next month, I guess.
Right. This
So
month,
it'll be
yeah.
November, when they reissue them, they will be plastic.
And are they going to also, which I brought up at every meeting
Hold on,
about
Kalia.
I had a second part of the Omni.
ahead, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I'm sorry, Trudy.
Go ahead.
Was when disabled passengers are using their Omni cards, if it malfunctions for any reason, the private security guards that are standing by
Oh,
that are trying to avoid fare evasion are not an assistant. You know, they're not assisting passengers with disabilities. They're actually inhibiting us going in and out a lot of times. Standing in front of the gate. I don't know if they're thinking that someone is behind us and they're trying to avoid. We could be with an assistant. That needs to be addressed with that private security company that we're traveling with PCAs, and that even though our Omni cards, sometimes it opens the gate, sometimes it malfunctions and it may not open the gate. Sometimes it opens the gate and you stand in front of it. And
Yeah,
and it impedes us going in and out. And that's a really serious issue. And I've seen it multiple times. 14th Street, 34th Street. I've seen it multiple times. It's a serious issue that needs to be addressed.
Yes, you're right, Kalia. We've reported several guards who were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. It's, the name of the guard company is Ace. And they, the MTA is well aware of some of the, transit is well aware of some of the issues with those guards. So it has been reported.
And Andrew, just.
If there's specific instances when that happens at times and locations, let us know. And we'll report that too.
Yes,
Yeah, and I did tell them. Thank you.
yes.
Following up on the Omni cards, I mean, I sound like a broken record on this. But at least two CVS stores, which I go into regularly and which sell, but there is still the confusion when you pay for the card, if you're also getting the fare. I think I brought this up at, I don't know how many meetings. When they have the new cards that made of plastic, will they be changing the stand or the information on this, you know, where people can buy them in place like CVS so that they understand? Because a couple of cashiers, people who take, and they know that I'm somehow connected to the MTA. They don't know what or anything, but they say, can't you do something about, make a sign that says, in one place, they actually did a handwritten sign saying $5 cost does not include the, you know, they did it out of.
Does not include travel.
Right.
Yes.
No, it does not include fare
Yeah.
is the way
Yes.
they wrote it. But I think I've brought this up, and I don't know how many meetings.
Yes.
Are they going to do something about getting that information out so people don't think that they also got fare when they paid it?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if they're doing that. I do know that that is a good point, because if you're buying a new Omni card in one of the station vending machines, there's a promotional cost where it's only $1 instead. So it makes a lot more sense.
But I'm talking
No, I
about
understand,
in
but
the
I'm saying
private.
it makes sense for them to at least say, you can get a cheaper one you can also purchase one in stations for $1.
But if people want to buy one in the CVS,
Yes.
there's
Full
still
fare.
confusion.
It's a full fare card.
I'm not sure.
Can't buy reduced fare.
We haven't heard since you had last brought it up about whether or not they're gonna improve the signage. We did support that, and the cards themselves say that there's a fee for I know that in the store themselves, they don't have signage, but the MTA can't.
Well, to help a number of people who I'm very fond of in CVS,
Yeah.
if we could ask again that when they do the new card, that they also improve the signage or do some kind of signage that makes it clearer to the customers.
Right, see, for the student, this new card's not right. Yeah, just for the
Yeah,
students.
the Omni card standard is plastic. It's just for the student Omni cards, they gave out.
Well, whatever it is, again, I feel like a broken record. But I'm doing this on behalf of all of these sales.
It is a good point.
Whatever.
There's an Omni commercial,
No, but actually right on the stand so that when
Yes.
people go to buy it last minute and they haven't seen the commercial or anything.
I would say it's probably a better thing for CVS or one of the stores to do it themselves.
Well, they are doing that. I know of at least.
Folks, we're running late and Chris has a question and Stuart has a question.
Yeah, I have new business.
Comment that was just related to this.
Go ahead.
My hands are up.
Go
No,
ahead.
no, no, I have new business. Go ahead.
But I don't play that game, but when the issue was brought up and I embraced what Trudy was saying and gave Kate Cantino a practical solution. And there was a commitment that they'd look into this, but not to do it, but to look into it. So these cards come wrapped at the store, correct?
Yes.
So we suggested and took your idea further to say are not included or on the wrapper. So in addition to the signage, someone who gets the product and is examining the product knows that there's a distinction between what they used to do with Metro cards, selling pre-valued cards versus a product that has zero fare. And we suggested this, but she never got back to us. So I guess that's old, old
Great
business.
idea.
Fare not included should be,
Right.
should be on the.
On the wrapper.
On the box, on
I
everything.
believe there may be some language, maybe not that exact wording, but something to that effect.
It does. It does say it.
It wasn't clear. So we gave her ideas.
Yes, we have to,
But
we'll go.
does not include fare.
Right, so taking Karen's suggestion was having the vendors, I don't know, you have prominent signage, right?
Here.
And then fencing the product having the
Well, the product should have the signage.
Right.
The vendors
The product says does not include fare.
Right, so.
Okay.
There's an Omni team dedicated to ensuring that retailers are supplying Omni cards and also managing the relationship. So that team, we will reach out to and recommend that they are providing signage or suggesting signage.
Something, no, it would be great to have it on
Yes.
the stand where
Okay.
they.
Yes.
We will.
Yes.
Chris?
Yeah, new business, and since we're all talking about Omni,
Thank you.
Trudy, to answer you guys your questions, Andrew asked me to bring some of the reduced fare Omni information that's on the table. Third, Navalance, that's on the 6th line, Trudy and Sharon. And if Bert can hear me on the live screen, you'll see it on the 6 trains. You can scan it on your phone. It will tell you the minutes of the train, or if you're at stations, it will also track the buses as well. They do for hearing impaired and languages. Regarding the Omni stuff, how to sign up for the Omni account is here. And I don't have a lot, but I do have how to link your bank card with your Omni reduced fare. I have all that information here, including the combo that's also in the front as well.
If anybody needs one of these brochures, please feel free to take.
What is this carnival exactly? What is it?
That is if you use your phone and you scan it with your Q code at a station, at customer service center, reduced fare vehicle or Grand Central, you would get a live person who does sign language.
Oh,
That will help the customers. That's something that Q and I have been, and the MTA Accessibility Actor has been working on, working on the hearing.
is Carnival the name of the company that supplies this? Oh,
Yeah.
Because it's not an abbreviation for something.
No, that's the name, and they're agreeing to work with us, and it's been going very well on that as
Okay.
well.
Anyone have anything else? Otherwise, thank
30
you.
seconds.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Dante.
I took the Nostrand station to come here today. I think every piece of signage in there was only in English. So investment in additional languages for signage in the station.
Nostrand on the 2-3.
The 2-3, yeah. Would be very beneficial to the folks who live there. And just want to reiterate that the Franklin Avenue Medgar Evers College Station stop needs to be ADA accessible.
I told you.
Yeah, we're getting over 1,000 units on Franklin Avenue. And so we have a college, we got the units, it needs to be ADA accessible.
Who's the assembly person from that district?
Cut a couple of ways, but you have Ferris Forrest, Brian Cunningham.
All right, if they could send a letter to the MTA, I think that would help move up Franklin Avenue, Medgar Evers College a little more quickly.
And Dante, I did mention this last time, support letters needs to go out. That's the one thing. And there's a survey I hope you're still doing that. Because that increases it.
Yeah, we sent our letter as well.
Yeah, we did a member activity at the last.
I'll mention it again too.
Weeks ago, and we sent it.
It would be appreciated for everyone.
All right, everybody, thank you.
I move the meeting be adjourned.
Second,
And
Trudy seconded.
Any opposition? No, we're adjourned. See you hopefully at PTAC next Thursday.
yeah.
Thank you.
Done, so
Don't go anywhere yet.
again.
Bye, everyone.
About 5 minutes.
I only need two.
Okay.